Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, dear friends of Κύκλου Ιδεών. It is a great honor to host one of the most important voices in European digital policy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Brando Benifei, member of the European Parliament, co-chair of the Parliament's AI working group, and one of the two main authors of the EU AI Act, the world's first full law on artificial intelligence. In simple words, the AI Act follows one rule: the higher the risk an AI system creates, the stricter the law. Some uses are banned, like government giving citizens a social score. Others are called high risk. AI decides who gets a job, a loan, or how you're treated at the border. And the most powerful models, the ones behind ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, are now supervised by a new European body, the AI Office, which can fine companies up to 7% of their global revenue. But the timeline has just changed. A few days ago, Parliament and the Council pushed the most important rules back by 16 months. So tonight, we sit at a real crossroads, and there's no better person to explain what that means than our guest. Mr. Benifei, καλώς ήλθατε στον Κύκλο Ιδεών. Welcome to Κύκλους Ιδεών.
Thank you very much. Can you see me fine?
Yes, I can see you perfectly.
Okay, thank you.
Before we begin, allow me a small confession to make. Tonight, we face the most difficult problem in the world, an Italian and a Greek who must hold a conversation and keep it within 20 minutes.
We can make it. I'm used to talk briefly in plenary.
Okay. So let me be efficient. I will take 4 more minutes to put my 2 questions to you, one after the other, and then the stage is yours for 15 minutes or less, in whatever order you prefer. Okay. So my first question is about the AI Office and the new 16-month delay. The AI Office is brand new. Its job is to supervise the most powerful AI models, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. On paper, its powers are serious. It can demand technical information, force changes to models, recall dangerous systems, and impose heavy fines. But in reality, from what I read, it has only 125 people today, growing up to 160. The United Kingdom's AI Security Institute, for example, already has around 250. A few days ago, the rules for high-risk AI, for hiring, for lending, for border control were pushed from August 2026 to December 2027. Because the AI Act is not retroactive, any system that goes live in this 16-month window may keep running for years outside these strict rules unless the company substantially modifies it. So, Mr. Benifei, can the AI Office, as it stands today, really hold OpenAI, Google, or Meta accountable? And has this delay opened a door for biased hiring tools, unfair credit scoring, and biometric surveillance to enter Europe and stay here for years? My second question is about generative AI, elections, and political will. The Digital Services Act, the well-known DSA, already makes the big platforms responsible for what their users post. But generative AI changes everything. The platform now is also a content producer. Here is a concrete example. Imagine someone uses Gemini to create a fake video of a well-known politician saying something he never said. The video looks completely real. Someone posts it on TikTok 3 days before a very big election. Millions see it before anyone can react. Who is responsible? The platform that showed it? The AI model that produced it? Or both? And then there is a deeper worry. Under the Digital Markets Act, we already saw what big tech does when it does not like a law. Apple, for example, technically opened the iPhone to other app stores, but added so many fees that no developer could use it. People call this malicious compliance, obeying the law, killing its spirit. With the AI Act, the stakes are higher because companies can now hide their training data and their algorithms behind trade secrets. So, Mr. Benifei, the final question. Does the AI Act really give us the tools to stop a giant AI model for poisoning an election? And if a provider like OpenAI, Google, or Claude simply refuses to comply, does Europe have the nerve to ban a big tech AI? Mr. Benifei, the floor is yours.
So first of all, thank you very much. I hope you can hear and see me fine here from Strasbourg. I'm really happy to participate, even though in this virtual form, to your important discussion. I think I will go through the questions in order, in the order you asked. So on the enforcement capacity of the AI office and the complexities of this, I think the concern is legitimate. And this is exactly why yesterday, together with colleagues from different political groups involved in the AI Act negotiations, we sent a letter to Executive Vice President Virkkunen and Commissioner Serafin on the resourcing of the AI office. Because this is no longer a secondary administrative discussion, it is becoming one of the central strategic questions for Europe's technological future. The AI Act gives the EU, for the first time, real supervisory powers over the most powerful AI systems in the world. But rules on paper are not enough. If enforcement authorities are not properly equipped, then in practice, the power to define the acceptable boundaries of frontier AI risks shifting from democratic institutions to the companies themselves. And this matters not only for safety and fundamental rights, but also for competitiveness and trust. Effective enforcement is not opposed to innovation. Legal certainty and trustworthy AI are preconditions for large-scale adoption across the economy. If we look at the numbers, there is clearly a mismatch between the scale of the task and the current resources. The DSA enforcement structure, the Digital Services Act enforcement, already has around 160 staff and a budget close to 50 million euros. Meanwhile, the AI Office Safety Unit is projected to reach only around 43 staff by the end of 2026, despite the rapidly growing number of frontier models entering the market. So yes, I believe Europe still underestimates the scale of institutional investment that credible AI governance requires. This is why we need much more ambitious long-term approach, stronger staffing, serious operational funding, more technical expertise, and sustainable financing mechanisms for the AI office. Because strengthening the structure is not only about enforcement, it's a strategic investment in European competitiveness, technological sovereignty, and our long-term ability to govern one of the most consequential technologies of this century. Otherwise, clearly, the strength and the power of private entities will overcome the public interest, and this is not what we want. So on the digital omnibus and the window of loophole, we can say, for your second point, I understand this concern, and I think it's important to address it honestly by looking at how we start, where we are, and where we can go. First of all, the issue linked to Article 111(2) of the AI Act did not suddenly appear because of the digital. The AI Act contained already transitional provisions for high-risk systems placed on the market before the rules fully apply, particularly regarding systems that are only brought under the stricter regime later if they undergo significant changes. But at the same time, we also have to be honest about the implementation reality we were facing. Many of the harmonized standards, technical benchmarks, and compliance guidance necessary for companies, notified bodies, and national authorities were simply not ready, applying highly complex obligations. Without those standards in place would likely produce fragmented enforcement, legal uncertainty, and inconsistent implementation. And frankly, during the negotiations, there were also much more radical pressures pushing towards broader deregulation and much deeper dismantling of parts of the AI Act altogether. So the political objective for us was to preserve the core architecture of the Act, especially the risk-based approach and the protection of fundamental rights, while ensuring that implementation remains realistic and enforceable. This is what we mean when we say simplification without deregulation. So would I have preferred all standards and governance tools to be fully ready on time? Of course, but that was not the reality we were facing, and I couldn't do anything for that. Now, this does not mean the transition period should become a free-for-all. This is precisely why the next phase is so important: accelerating the harmonized standards, strengthening the guidance, reinforcing the AI office, and ensuring coordinated enforcement across Europe so that the protections of the AI Act enforced not only formally on paper, but also in practice. So on the other points you raised, I think that generative AI is fundamentally changing the information environment in which democratic societies operate. And the AI Act does address, these risks much more directly than many people realize. For the largest and most capable GPAI models, the Act explicitly requires risk assessment and mitigation measures for systemic risks, including risks affecting democratic processes and information integrity. This is also why the GPAI Code of Practice is so important, together with transparency obligations such as labeling and watermarking for AI-generated or manipulated content, to be sure that we can know when a content is AI-generated and we can contrast the abuse of the deepfakes. But the AI Act alone is not enough. Once generative AI is integrated into very large online platforms, the issue is no longer only the model itself, it's also about amplification, recommender systems, virality, and monetization. This is where the interaction with the Digital Services Act becomes central, that these two legislation work together. Personally, I do not think a platform can claim to be a merely passive intermediary if it's directly integrating generative AI into the production, ranking, or amplification of content. Now, on enforcement and trade secrets, I think we need to make an important distinction. Trade secrecy is a real issue for transparency across the broader AI ecosystem, for researchers, auditors, journalists, and civil society. But trade secrets should not become a shield against enforcement by public authorities. The AI Act is clear that confidentiality protections cannot prevent or hinder effective enforcement. The Commission and national authorities retain powers to request the information necessary to supervise compliance and assess the systemic risks. At the same time, rules must remain credible. The objective of the AI Act is not to ban AI, but to create rules for trustworthy AI within the European market. However, if a major provider systematically refuses to comply with European law, then of course the Union must be prepared to use the enforcement tools foreseen in the legislation, including, in the most extreme case, restrictions or withdrawal from the market. Otherwise, we would send a dangerous message that compliance with democratic rules is optional for sufficiently powerful technological actors. Ultimately, this is not about being anti-technology. It's about whether democratic institutions still retain the capacity to govern technologies that are becoming increasingly central to our economies and societies. And we want to pursue this objective with determination, with the choice of doing something that only Europe has been deciding to do at the time, and now other parts of the world are copying us, are discussing to take the same measures, like prohibiting certain use cases of AI in the more extreme cases of risk. For example, when systems are used for mass surveillance through biometric cameras, or for the predictive policing, or for emotion recognition in study places and workplaces. These are all very important to be considered as part of a way to imagine a society with AI. We want AI to be used to create more value, more opportunities, but we do not want that to be used to compress democracy, to limit freedoms, to reduce the autonomy of people. And this is extremely, extremely relevant, and is in fact an area where we see that the rest of the world is looking at us, a lot of different places. I will be myself traveling next week to Mexico for a meeting with the Latin America Parliamentary Assembly, with parliaments from all Latin America, and we will discuss, in fact, the advancement in that continent of legislation similar to AI Act and Digital Services Act. But that's not only the case of South America. We can look at places like South Korea, like Canada, like some of the states of the United States. So to conclude, the work that we are doing of implementation of AI Act is complex. It requires political will, but it's not a technical exercise. It's a decision to maintain freedom in Europe, to have our own way of dealing with technology that allows for people to be protected and to be empowered, so that AI can become an emancipation instrument, not an instrument of repression, of limitation of potential for people. And this must be done with the investment, if I may conclude on this note, investment in capacities for computational capabilities, for creating new business in the AI, to send enough capital support and enough financing means to the companies that need them to grow. This can be done without sacrificing our values. But to do this, and I refer again to something I already said at the beginning of this speech from my side, we need to be credible and straightforward in implementing the rules that we have decided, without fragmentation, without separation among the member states. I wanted to specify on this simply because it's extremely clear that fragmentation, separation of the member states, lack of centralized European capacity, think of what I've said about the AI office, will prevent us to be able to promote our human-centric AI model. Otherwise, if we comply with these commitments and with this direction of work, we can deliver and we can have a human-centric AI deployed in Europe and be more and more an example for the rest of the world on how we can defend and support and empower our democracy while being able to take the best out of a transformative innovation like AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your attending here in our conference and for your efforts. And we expect you here in Greece for an exclusive one-day conference discussing about AI Act and all the issues you're trying to resolve.
Very happy to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.